Remember back before internet, back before TV, phones, the printing press? Probably not the last one. While all of these are forms of communication and expression, the internet is unique because it encompasses all of them. It's communication, expression, your runway and hideaway, your soapbox and secret thoughts, your hey, what are you up to? And this is what I do. It's your free speech, your ability to upload opinions, facts, the cute cat from down the street, a platform to debate and compete, to find each other, collaborate and rework, recombine and search, get serious and goofy, mourn loss and celebrate life, share your strife, start a movement, end a feud, or start one, hang out and keep in touch, reach out and meet up. And it is all of these things because it is open. The highways here have no locks or restrictions. They're not sexist or racist, no single religion or lack thereof. You don't have to have connections to the fat cats or big banks. It truly is a space of, for, and by the people. And because of this, we have to protect it. As Lawrence Lessig says in the documentary film Killswitch, the freedom is embedded in the technology, and we have to protect the technology if we want to be protecting this freedom. Our digital rights are our First Amendment rights. This fight for an open internet, this fight against shady corporate copyrights, against Orwellian mass surveillance, is not just about the boring bureaucracy inherent in a trade deal or a telecom outline. It's about our ability to communicate and express ourselves openly, without invasive surveillance, without the threat of being imprisoned for sharing or spreading knowledge, and without the threat of restricted access based on how much we earn and what we want to say. Today, big corporations and some members of our government are working together to confine this technology, to strip it of its freedom, thereby stripping us of ours. By locking these issues behind closed doors, wrapping them in seizure-inducing boredom, they hope we'll stay quiet long enough to make digital rights an oxymoron and a fight to restore them next to impossible. But we aren't, and we won't stay quiet. This isn't the first time that the internet has come under attack, and it likely won't be the last. Then, now, and next time, fuck quiet. We're getting loud. Today we dive into this battle. Grassroots, creative, from tweets to marching in the streets, this is Net Neutrality and the TPP on Act Out. Welcome to Act Out. I'm Eleanor Goldfield, and this is your tipping point. On February 26th, the FCC voted to uphold net neutrality and reclassify the internet as Title II, a common carrier. Think of it like electricity. You get electricity at your house or apartment, and you access it simply by plugging into the grid. You can't be made to pay a premium for a floor lamp. Now, the internet is the same idea. You plug in and go, whatever site you want, regardless of whether it's Netflix or Occupy.com. The pipes carry these sites evenly and equally and can't slow one down because they're not cozy with the corporations. So this is huge. It's a tremendous victory of the people's power over corporate power. And it's not the first time that this has happened. Back in 2011, corporate interests attempted an internet takeover under the guise of protecting copyright. SOPA and PIPA, as these bills were called, threatened any site with removal if it infringed on copyright, meaning, for example, that YouTube could be taken down for hosting a video with remixed music, or one of those fan lyric videos. Fucking nuts, right? In protest against this ludicrous legislation and internet censorship, thousands of sites went dark during the blackout on January 18, 2012, including Wikipedia and Google. Up against impossible odds, billions of dollars, and the entrenched corruption in our government, people fought back against the powers that be and won. And here again, in this most recent battle over net neutrality, the people won. We won out over the ridiculous mounds of twisted sociopathy steering our government, despite the fact that less than a year ago, that very same FCC was proposing rules that would allow companies like Comcast and Time Warner to bury net neutrality. Why? Well, because they can, or rather, they could. As the New York Times so succinctly put it in this April 2014 article, the principle that all internet content should be treated equally as it flows through cables and pipes to consumers looks all but dead. And speaking of burying, you may have seen this morbid little meme online last January when Verizon won against the FCC in a case dating back to 2010, due to the fact that the internet wasn't classified as a common carrier. Fast forward a year and a little over a month, net neutrality rose from the dead, but it's no miracle or divine intervention. It's just continued hard work from regular people getting creative and staying determined. In short, SOPA and PIPA didn't fail because lawmakers saw the light. Net neutrality didn't win because FCC Chairman Wheeler woke up one day and thought, leave the internet open and equally accessible? Shit, what a great concept. These things happened because of people. People like you and me just saying, you know what, that shit will not fly. I'm gonna do something about it. And that's the best part. It's not like everyone pulled a V for Vendetta, threw on a cape and mask, and took over Fox News with the help of an unsuspecting heroine. People contributed in their own way. Like this clip from activist documentary Killswitch shows, the internet became both the battleground and the platform where people could share their creativity in support of an equal and open internet.
This is a movement that started organically on the internet by American citizens.
The main thing I think is interesting about SOPA was the strength of the reaction. And it wasn't simply people in DC who care about these issues, but it was tech people, engineer people, young people, all kinds of people said, you know, I kind of like the internet the way it is, and I just don't think Hollywood's plan is going to make things better.
The war for the internet has begun. Hollywood is in control of politics. The government is killing innovation. Don't let them get away with that.
Everyone was thinking of ways they could help, often really clever, ingenious ways.
Then these pirates come and they steal all our internets.
They made infographics, they started PACs, they designed ads, they bought billboards, they wrote news stories, they held meetings. Everybody saw it as their responsibility to help. They threw themselves into it. They didn't stop to ask anyone for permission.
Let's get together, let's all unite, or they will do whatever they like.
And this is why we won. We won because of the simple fact that the power of the people is greater than that of the people in power. And if you tap into just a fraction of that potential, you can start a fire, marshal a tsunami, shake the very foundations of a corrupt system that only survives because we feed it. If you build it, he will come. And if you stop feeding the damn zombies fresh hearts and minds, they'll die out. So let's take a look at some of the ways that net neutrality movement starved the zombies.
Party at the FCC! 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 Party at the FCC!
It's critical that the network continue to empower people to act free of government and corporate control to organize for whatever political end they want to organize to. That's the internet. That's its architecture. End-to-end, peer-to-peer architecture is that design. So the only chance we have in overcoming what I think of as this core corruption of our government is through the internet. It's the only way.
Comcast, down with the monopoly!
Badass, right? These actions aren't only responsible for shifting the stance of the powers that be, they're also responsible for informing and engaging people behind the front lines. And this is vital. For all of the reasons that I mentioned at the beginning of the show, saving the net is mandatory, and political change is not a spectator sport. It requires us to not only get creative, but to fight one of the most powerful tools of the corrupt, making shit boring. Let's be honest, who the hell is going to join a fight on net neutrality? Net neutrality is not a sexy term. It's not interesting. It is so crazy important, but when wrapped in the verbal equivalent of 2 Ambien, a carafe of bourbon, and a warm Snuggie, it's no wonder that a February 19th poll showed that 74% of 800 adults surveyed had no idea what net neutrality was. Meanwhile, a poll from November, back when this issue wasn't even as popular as it is today, showed that 81% of people surveyed thought the idea of net neutrality was a good idea. So, what the fuck? Well, the difference is that in the November poll, 900 adults were asked whether they would favor or oppose allowing broadband access providers to charge websites or streaming video services extra for faster speeds. No one mentioned net neutrality specifically, just the concept. In fact, the article even said that it helps not to call it net neutrality. Clearly. This is what John Oliver said in his now famous net neutrality segment. The cable companies have figured out the great truth of America. If you want to do something evil, put it inside something boring. And suggested that activists call net neutrality preventing cable company fuckery instead. Good idea. Or put on a giant hand costume, or grab some friends and go projecting, or host a dance party. Make a meme, take a selfie, make a documentary. Make this shit interesting. Because when you do, people not only get it, they get animated about it. And this isn't a red versus blue thing. This is a human thing. That same poll that didn't mention net neutrality specifically also showed that 85% of Republicans were in favor of the idea, even more than Democrats. But enough with numbers and graphs and stats. That shit can be just as boring as the issues they cover. Bottom line, people got excited about net neutrality because they didn't know it as the dull, humdrum, overly academicified name. They knew the concept. And that's thanks to all of these tremendous organizations that battled on the front lines against corporate control and for free speech. To learn more about these orgs and to get involved with some of their awesome, artfully, creatively conscious antics, take a look at this screen. And do check them out, because although we've won this battle, the war over the internet is far from over. Already Congress is scheming on how to reverse the FCC's decision and slam our open internet into the cages of corporate telecoms. So check out these sites for more information and for inspiration on what you can contribute, how you can lend your passion, your expertise, or hobby to this fight. The thing that I love about activism is the same thing that I love about wine. You don't have to be an expert to enjoy it, and you don't have to be a career winemaker to enrich other people's lives by sharing it. Whatever bottle, whatever grape gets you going, roll with it. Cook with it. Pair it with food. Have it with a cigar or by itself. Just take a sip and enjoy. Share it, spread it around. If the world ends tomorrow, you'll be glad that you had a glass. And you'll be glad that you left a positive mark, a positive imprint in the name of justice, freedom, democracy. And if the world doesn't end tomorrow, you get more wine. You get more fun, and you get more opportunities to make shit better. And this isn't just about philanthropy. If you're a selfish asshole, this is for you too. Because it's not just about making other people's lives better, it's about making yours better. These actions don't just push for the improvement of our socio-political situation, they feel good. Selflessness is very selfish. Eat your heart out, Ayn Rand. Seriously though, you feel damn good when you do something not just for you. And I like to feel good. I'm a selfless hedonist. And that soapbox philosophy was brought to you by wine. Moving on, to showcase yet another facet of the creative and oftentimes physical nature of activism, here is this week's Low-Life Scum segment.
Get out of here, you low-life scum.
On February 10th, Republican FCC Commissioner Ajit Pai gave a press conference outlining his opposition to Chairman Wheeler and President Obama's push to reclassify the internet as Title II. In other words, he spoke on behalf of big telecoms. As shown in the graph from before, I'm not going to show it again, the vast majority of his party's constituents want net neutrality. So to make sure he was aware of that, activists Kevin Zeese and Margaret Flowers showed up to speak on behalf of that 85%. Unfortunately, their peaceful protest was short-lived due to a security force that acted as if it were policing a rugby match on speed as opposed to a quiet press conference. Both Zeese and Flowers were tackled and violently dragged from the hearing before being verbally threatened as they stood outside the FCC after the hearing. So, to the FCC security, I give you this week's Low Life Scum Award for tackling peaceful protesters as if you were trying to stop the murder of a puppy by a 300-pound linebacker.
Get out of here, you low-life scum.
Now, I think we've given ourselves enough of a pat on the back for net neutrality. So what's the next behemoth of boring, the next colossus of codeine-soaked oligarchy we have to combat with caffeine-like precision and creativity? Trans-Pacific Partnership. Fuck. Please stay awake. I know, that shit is even worse than net neutrality, but remember, it's supposed to sound boring. The more boring, the more evil. There's a graph for that too, but I already promised I wouldn't show you any more graphs. So let's dive in. What is the TPP? Well, let's start with this quote by Julian Assange. If you read, write, publish, think, listen, dance, sing, or invent, if you farm or consume food, if you're ill now or might one day be ill, the TPP has you in its crosshairs. So that's everyone and everything. The TPP is a transatlantic trade deal that basically gives corporations global sovereignty over every facet of our lives. What's more, this evil pile of corporate shit is completely secret. Only a few members of Congress have been allowed to see parts of the document. That's part of our government given partial access to a document that completely alters our way of life. Meanwhile, 600 corporate advisors have seen the document. Julian Assange and WikiLeaks have given us access to a few leaked sections of it, and from those leaks, it's brazenly clear why the powers that be don't want us to see it. Here's some of what the TPP would do. Offshore millions of good-paying jobs to low-wage nations so corporations don't have to worry about pesky minimum wages or the dwindling benefits American workers still have access to. Expand pharmaceutical monopoly protections and institute longer corporate patents, i.e. crippled and more expensive access to medicine. In that same vein, it would also decrease access to affordable health care. Limit attempts to label and/or ban GMOs while allowing the import of goods that don't even meet US safety standards, not to mention other countries' safety standards, which are oftentimes higher. Safeguard Wall Street risk-taking and cripple existing and future regulations on Wall Street fuckery. Push for the privatization of land and natural resources, and here is something straight out of a movie. Allow multinational corporations and private investors to sue sovereign nations for loss of profit. And that's just the shit that we know about. How overwhelmingly evil is that? Your health, safety, income, digital rights, and overall human rights down the shitter. And you can't even enact laws to stop it, because if you do, a corporation can take your entire country to court for cutting in on their bottom line. Just fucking wow. Needless to say, it's incredibly important that this does not pass. And people across the country are working hard to ensure that not only the TPP gets axed, but the fast track does too. Fast track would allow President Obama to bypass government, just give a big middle finger to the legislative structure of our country in order to hurry the TPP and any other trade deal, rush it through Congress without any amendments and just a quick up or down vote. It keeps the secret secret and gives the TPP a head start on fucking us all over. Now, with something like this, the question is often, where do I begin? It's so overwhelming and so far-reaching, it's almost abstract. Like the brain can't quite encompass how massively evil, how abhorrently twisted a deal like this really is. Well, let's start with fast track. As we speak, Senators Orrin Hatch and Ron Wyden are in talks to get fast track passed so that the TPP is that much closer to cuffing us all in corporate chains. Wyden is still on the fence. Hatch has already been lost to the sirens of corporate sociopathy, but Wyden we can win over. Last week, activists staged sit-ins at Wyden's office, providing a visual prompt not just for Wyden in his office, but also for people all over the net to call in and tell him to vote no on fast track. And the cool thing? It worked, for the time being. Wyden called off the committee finance hearing where the bill was to be introduced. So now we really have to keep the pressure on. The sit-ins continue this week, and so do the calls. Take a screenshot of this meme, share it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and while you're waiting for your kid to get out of school or your laundry to finish, just call his office. You don't have to be from Oregon, just call his office. It takes 30 seconds to dial in and say, no fast track. Call a few times, set up automatic calls, get your friends to call, your parents, your neighbors. Fast track is the first battle in the fight against TPP, and now is the crucial time to stop it. For those of you that want to get a little bit more digital, here is this week's Frontlines segment. Log on to Facebook and Twitter and get the message out against Fast Track and the TPP. Here are some to get you started. And here are some images and memes you can share and spread around. Or hell, make your own. Grab a screenshot and take 4 seconds to post. Also, be sure to check out these organizations to learn more and to get more ideas on how to get involved. And for those who want something a little more hands-on, the latter side of tweets to marching in the streets, I have just the thing for you. Speaking from experience, I can tell you that there are few things as awesome as guerrilla projection. You, a light, a photographer, and a message. Powerful and brilliant. Pun intended. This past week, I teamed up with fellow activists to capture some intense projections here in our nation's capital. At the same time, across the country, activists raised a light to fight the dark, secret evil of Fast Track and the TPP. This creatively coordinated assault on corporatocratic rule is brought to you by the Rolling Rebellion. Rolling Rebellion is a wave of national actions that employ artful activism in pushing for socio-political change and the defense of our democracy. Light projections are one of the mediums, but there's also street theater, all of those net neutrality puppets, builds and installations. On top of that, the site also has an entire toolkit section where you can learn about projections, bird dogging, yes, that's a thing, banner building, light boards, and sample actions, among other things. In other words, if you like flash mobs, street theater, yelling at politicians, building weird stuff, or always imagined projecting Batman-style signals onto buildings in the middle of the night, go to this site. Right now is all about the TPP and Fast Track, and the Rolling Rebellion is flipping that boring and making it an adrenaline rush of creative activism nationwide. Wrapping up, here's your quote of the day from Aaron Swartz, who in 2008 wrote a guerrilla open access manifesto highlighting the need to propagate knowledge, using the internet as a key tool. Quite simply and powerfully, he wrote, "Sharing isn't immoral, it is a moral imperative." Aaron died because of this fight, because of this concept of sharing knowledge, of free and open access to the scientific and intellectual discoveries of mankind. His life focused on the fight for our freedoms in the digital age. The battle for the net would not have been the same without him, and it seems fitting that between the victory of net neutrality and the fight against TPP, we not only mention him, but give a shout out and a thank you to activists everywhere who use technology to advance the concepts of freedom, justice, and humanity across the globe. That's our show. Thank you so much for watching. This last shot will be all the sites we told you about from this week, plus the film. Please share this and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and subscribe on YouTube. Good night, and act out.